Begin today the Gemara on Daf Ayin Aleph from the Aleph, 2 lines from the top of the Yamud. Gonav v'tovach b'yoyim ha'kippurim v'cholo. The Mishnah says that if somebody steals the animal and then he slaughters it on Yom Kippur, so because there is no chiyuv misa for this, he's still going to be chayiv to pay the knas of Dalid v'hei 4 or 5 times as much, because the kamli b'derab mineh is only b'chiyuv misa. Okay, so the Gemara asks him this. Omri, they said the following question on this. But Amai, why is he chayiv to pay? He, the K'talaleka, it's true that on Yom Kippur, when you shecht on Yom Kippur, there is no chiyuv misa, there's a chiyuv kodes, and there's also it's a lav as well. So there's a chiyuv malchus, but malchus mi'ike. You are chayiv malchus, the lashes for shechting and being mechalal Yom Kippur by this. And the rule is v'kai malon de'eno loiko mishalem, that if a person does something and because of this he has to get malchus, you don't pay at the same time. So why over here is he paying the payment of Dalad V'hei if he's getting malchus? So Omri, the answer to this question, Ha mani Rab Meir. This Mishnah is the opinion of Rab Meir. The Omar, Rab Meir says, Loike u'mishalem. That no, you do give both of these punishments at the same time, malchus and payment as well. Rab Meir says this regarding the halacha of Eidim Zaymimin, that if Eidim Zaymimin, these are Eidim that set false testimony, and they wanted to obligate someone to pay. So then the halacha of Eidim Zaymimin is whatever they wanted to do for someone else, they get the same punishment that they now have to pay. But so Rab Meir says it's also allowed that they set false testimony, so they get malchus, and they also have to pay, both at the same time. That's Rab Meir's opinion. So here our Mishnah that says that on Yom Kippur, if you shecht on Yom Kippur, so you get malchus for the shechting on Yom Kippur, but you also have to pay the knas of Dalad V'hei. If so, if our Mishnah is Rab Meir, fill the tovach b'Shabbos, so then according to Rab Meir, so you should say the same regarding Shabbos. Even if you slaughtered this animal on Shabbos, now if you slaughter on Shabbos, that's a malacha, and you chayiv misa, but according to Rab Meir, you could be chayiv misa and pay the knas at the same time. Just like he says that you can get malchus and pay at the same time, the same should apply regarding misa and paying the knas. Now, so if you'll answer and say it's not the same thing, like fact that you get lashes and you pay at the same time, that Rab Meir holds. But meisu mishalem leslei, to say that there's a chiyuv misa and at the same time you pay, that Rab Meir doesn't hold of. This rule of kamle b'derabah minei regarding misa he agrees to. So the Gemara says, but v'loi, doesn't Rab Meir hold that even there, when there's a chiyuv misa, you still pay the knas? Because we have here a braysa that Rab Meir seems to be saying so clearly. Tanya, we learned in the braysa, Gonav v'tovach b'Shabbos. He stole the animal, he slaughtered it on Shabbos. Gonav v'tovach la'avodah zarah. He stole and slaughtered the animal for avodah zarah. Gonav sheir haniskal. Person stole a sheir haniskal. The sheir haniskal is a sheir that gored and killed a person, and then it's chayiv misa the sheir. So he stole this sheir, and v'tovcha he slaughters it. In all these cases, mishalim arba v'chamisha. You still pay the knas of arba v'chamisha. So one of the cases over here was when he's shechting on Shabbos, and there's a chiyuv misa for this, and yet Rab Meir says that you still chayiv to pay. So you see here that according to Rab Meir, just like loikim mishalim, there's also a chiyuv misa, and you still have to pay the Dalad V'hei. The Chachamim paitrin. Chachamim disagree. The Chachamim say that in all these cases you pater. So the Gemara answers and says there's no raya from this brayse. This brayse is talking about a different case. Omri. So they said bar minei bino. Don't put this braysa aside. This braysa is not a source for our discussion here. Why? Dahi, that is. Bar mino dahi. Put this braysa you just quoted here aside. Why? The ha'itmar Allah. We learn regarding this braysa. Amar Rav Yaakov, Amar Rav Yechanan. Rav Yaakov said in the name of Rav Yechanan. Amar Rav Yirmiyah, Amar Rav Shimon ben Lakish. Or it was in the name of Rav Shimon ben Lakish. Rab Avim Rabbi Lo, v'chol chavrusa mishmei Rabbi Yechanan. Rab Avim, Rabbi Lo, and the whole group, they all said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, all the same thing. Omri, they all said, what is this brayse here talking about when it says that you slaughter on Shabbos, and there's a chiyuv misa, and you still have to pay the Dalad V'hei? The case over here is that you didn't slaughter it yourself. You stole it, and then you sent the shliach. You sent another person to go and do the tvicha. So that person, the shliach, he's the one that's chayiv misa for the Chilul Shabbos, but the Mishaleach, the one that sent him to do the Tvicha, he's the one that has to pay the Knas of Dalad V'hei, so it's two different people. So therefore over here, you have to pay. Now the Gemara clarifies this, but how could this be? Do we ever say such a kind of thing, that one person did the act of the Aveda, here he slaughtered it, and yet the sender, the Mishaleach, is the one that's chayiv to pay for this? Usually the rule that we always have is, the Gemara says it all the time, Ein shliach lidvar Aveda. There's never such a thing that I send someone else to do an Aveda, and he did the act of the Aveda, and the Mishaleach is the one that's chayiv. The Mishaleach could always say, Divrei Rav, Divrei Atam, Divrei Mishayim. Why are you listening to me? You have to listen to the Eibishter. The fact that you did the Aveda, you're responsible for that. So why over here are we saying that the Shliach is Chayiv Misa, but the Mishaleach is Chayiv the Knas? So here the Gemara says that, this is an exception. And the Gemara brings a few sources for this. Amarave, Shani Hacha, the case of Tvicha Mechire is different. The Amakra, the Pasuk says, V'tav Chayu Machrei, that you stole it, and then either you slaughtered it or you sold it. So we compared it to Ma Mechira Yedei Acher, just like the Lashon of Umachrai is you sold it. How do you sell? You sell through someone else. The sale is with someone else that's buying. Av Tviche, the Torah putting these two together is also coming to teach that the Tviche is also Yedei Acher. That even if you slaughter this animal with a shliach that slaughtered it, still the Mishaleach is going to be chayiv. And that was the case that this Braisa is talking about. So therefore, really, Rab Meir's opinion remains that loike or mishalim at the same time, but if you yourself shechted it on Shabbos and you chayiv misa, you're not going to be chayiv to pay the knas. So our Mishnah still could be Rab Meir. The Gemara brings another source over here for this chiddush regarding tvicha mechira. The Bei Rabbi Shmuel Tana, by Rabbi Shmuel, they learned out this halacha. When it says v'tavchay machrei, the pasuk actually says v'tavchay oy machrei. So the word oy is extra. Oy l'rabes es shliach. That extra word oy is coming to say that even if it was done through a shliach, the mishaleach is going to be chayiv. The Bei Chizkiya Tana, third source, tachas l'rabes es shliach. The extra word in the pasuk where it says tachas, it says twice in the pasuk. Chamisha baki shalom tachas asher, arba tzayin tachas aseh. So the extra word of tachas is coming to say that even if it's done through a shliach, it's still going to be chayiv. However, Mazutra still asks on this. How could you say that in such a case the Mishaleach would be chayiv? Miye kemidi, is there ever a case that we say the ilu avid ihu, if you yourself would do this, leimechayiv, you would not be chayiv? So over here, if you yourself would go and slaughter this animal on Shabbos, you yourself would be pater. But nevertheless, v'avid shliach, if you do it through a shliach u'mechayev, then you would be chayev. Is there ever such a thing that doing something through a shliach, that is, would be more stringent than if you did it yourself? So besides the question that we had before, that it doesn't make sense to say that you should be chayev through a shliach, okay, so that we answered. You could be chayev through a shliach, because we brought psukim. But if here in this case, when it's done on Shabbos, since on Shabbos you yourself would be pater, how could you say that now if you did it through a shliach, it's more stringent and you should be chayev? So Ravashi explains, Hassam over here in this case, when you did it on Shabbos, lav mishum deloy mechayevu. The fact that if you did it yourself, you don't pay the da'al v'hei, it doesn't mean that in essence you're really potter. You're not potter. You're really chayev to pay. But the payil, you don't actually go ahead and pay because there's the chayev of misa that patters you of the payment. According to Rashi, and Rashi in another place explains this, that bidei Odom, here in the Bezdin, they're not going to be mechayev you to pay, but bidei Shemayim, you still should go ahead and pay, even when you're chayev misa. So in essence, there's a chiyuv. Kam leibim b'nabnei just sort of overrides it and patters you. So therefore over here as well, we could say that when someone else does it, you're going to be chayev to pay because it's not some more of a stringency than if you did it yourself. When you did it yourself, you also bad some chayiv. And Lamai, there's also a chayiv of misa, so b'poil you don't pay. But if it's done through someone else, he's chayiv the misa, and you're going to have to actually b'poil pay. That's the case of what this Bryce is talking about. Okay, second, where am I over here? The Gemara. So now the Gemara comes back to the Bryce we quoted before. That over there, it's all talking about when you did it through a shliach. And that's why he's chayiv misa and you're chayiv to pay. But if that's the case, if that Bryce is talking about when you sent a shliach, so then my time is the Rabban of the Patri. Why does the Bryce say that the Chachamim say that you're pater in such a case? What should be the reason to pater you? You're not chayiv misa, someone else is chayiv misa, so you should be chayiv to pay. So Omri, they answered, Man Chachamim, who's the Chacham of this Bryce? Rab Shimon. This is the Rab Shimon that we had quoted before in the Mishnah. The Omar, Rab Shimon's opinion is, Shchite she'eina re'uya. Anytime you shecht here for this Isser of Geneva, when it's Tavach, when you shecht it after you stole it, if this Shchite is not something which is fit for eating, Loishma shchita. It's not called a shchita anywhere, and here as well. So therefore over here, in all these cases the Braisa brings up, it's not a shchita that you're allowed to eat from it, and therefore you're going to be potter. So the Gemara now goes through the different cases that the Braisa spoke about. So Amri, they said about this in an explanation about this answer, Bishloime, this is a good answer for Avodah Zarah. When you shecht for Avodah Zarah, so now this animal is being shechted for Avodah Zarah, it becomes Asa Bahana for Avodah Zarah. So in that case, so you can't eat it. It's a shchita she'ein re'uya. So Rab Shimon says you potter to pay the dal v'hei. And v'sheira niskal, the sheira niskal as well. What's the halacha of v'sheira niskal? We learned before in this Masechta, the sheira that has to be slaughtered, that has to be killed, that is stoned to death. It's asabana. You can't have any benefit of it. So shchita she'ein re'uya. This is both these cases are shchita that's not fit for eating. Elo Shabbos, but when it comes to one that shechtens Shabbos, shchita re'uya, even though you are machal Shabbos, but it's still a shchita that you can eat from it. This Nan, as we learned in the Mishnah, Hashechet b'Shabbos v'yom Kippurim, Yishecht on Shabbos yom Kippur, you did a malacha, Ava b'shem is chayiv b'nafshe, and Shabbos, you chayiv misa, shchitosik sheira. But the actual shchita is a kosher shchita, and you could eat from the meat. The fact that you machal Shabbos and you chayiv misa is one point, but on the other hand, though, the actual meat itself is a kosher shchita, and you could eat from it. So if so, over here, why the Chachamim, which we said Chachamim is Rab Shimon, why do they say that in this case you would be potter? It's fit for eating. So Amri, the answer to this question. Savalo Karab Yechin and Asandler. That no, over here the Chachamim, besides the fact that this Chachamim is Rab Shimon, this Chachamim here also holds like the opinion of Rab Yechin and Asandler, which holds that when it's shechted on Shabbos, it's actually not roi to eat at all. Where do we see this? Nan, we learned in the Mishnah as follows. Hamavashal b'Shabbos b'sheigig, a person that cooks on Shabbos. A malacha cooks on Shabbos, but it was done b'sheigig. So yoichal, so he can eat it on Shabbos, even on he himself could eat on Shabbos what he did because it was b'sheigig. So Chachamim didn't give any knas for this that he shouldn't be able to eat it. V'meizid, but if he went and did a malacha on Shabbos and he cooked on Shabbos v'meizid, so then lo yoichal. He should not eat it on Shabbos himself, not he. And Rashi says not other people as well should not eat it on Shabbos itself. You have to wait until Motzei Shabbos. Divrei Rab Meir, this is Rab Meir's opinion. Rab Yudah is more stringent about this. B'shoigeg yoichal. B'motzei Shabbos. If he cooked on Shabbos b'shoigeg, so then he could eat it, but only on Motzei Shabbos, not on Shabbos itself. Okay, now, if it was la'achedim, that is. I'm sorry, no, I went down a line. 1 second, I'm sorry. B'mezid, that is. B'mezid, if he cooked on Shabbos b'mezid, lo yoichal ilamis. Then he should not eat it forever. So the lo yoichal ilamis that Rabbi Yehuda is saying is for himself, that he should not eat it forever if he did it b'mezid. But as Rashi says, others are allowed to eat it after Shabbos. That's Rabbi Yehuda. Now Rabbi Yechon Asandla says b'sheigig yoichal lemotzei Shabbos le'achedim v'loy loy. If a person cooks even just b'sheigig, so then Motzei Shabbos achedim could eat, but he himself, even if it was just done b'sheigig, could never eat from this that he cooked on Shabbos. So it becomes totally aser for himself. B'mezid lo yoichal leilomis leiloy v'loy achedim. If it was cooked b'mezid, so then it's aser to eat from this, not himself and not anyone else. So here you clearly see Rabbi Yechon Asandla says, if you shecht, the same thing with Bashchita, if you shecht b'mezid on Shabbos, the tvicha, so it's aser to eat. So therefore, Rab Shimon over here would say that there's no payment of the dalad v'hei, because it's only if it's roi to be eaten from. The Gemara brings the source of Rabbi Yechon Asandla's opinion. My time that Rabbi Yechon Asandler, why does Rabbi Yechon Asandler say that it becomes aser forever? So here the Gemara understands, according to one version, that this is not just a knas midrabanan, but this is the iser menatayra to eat from it. Kedidarish Rab Chia apischa de beinesiya. Rab Chia darshan and explained this at the opening of the door of the nasi. Pasuk says, "Shmartem es Shabbos ki kodesh yilochem." Keep Shabbos. Shabbos is holy. What do we learn out from this? Ma kodesh asa ba'achila. The expression of kodesh here means just like kachim. Kachim is something which is asa ba'achila for anyone else to eat. Af ma'aser Shabbos. So too, something that was prepared and made on Shabbos, asurim ba'achila. It's going to be asa to eat. That's the source of Rabbi Yechon Asandla. It says that it's asa to eat forever for himself and for anyone else as well. Now you would think to take this to the next step and say, just like something which is kachim, it's kodesh, it's not only asa to eat, but it's asa ba'ano as well. Af ma'aser Shabbos asa ba'ano. So to something that was prepared on Shabbos, not only should it be asa to eat, it should be asa to have any benefit of it at all. But the pasuk here adds the word lechem. It means shelachem yehei. Not that you still have something of it, you can have a no of it. Yachal, I would think to say, that this Isser, that forever, it should be Asa, for you and for everyone else. This should apply even if this was cooked on Shabbos b'shoigeg. Talmud Loimar, and that pasuk can continue there and says, Mechalel mois yumas. If you desecrate the Shabbos, you chayiv misa. So we see it's talking about a mezid. B'mezid amarti l'cha. Only if you cook b'mezid or did a malacha b'mezid, then it becomes Asa forever, v'loi b'shoigeg. Not b'shoigeg. This is one source, one way to interpret the opinion of Rabbi Yechina Sandler. Now the Gemara though brings that there's a machlekes about this. Pligi bar Ravacha v'Ravina. There was a machlekes. Ravacha and Ravina argued about the source of Rabbi Yechina Sandler that if you cook b'mezid on Shabbos, it becomes also forever. Chad Omar Ma'aser Shabbos Deiraisa. One said, as we just explained, that the source of this is Minatayr, the pasuk of Kodesh, that says that if you did this on Shabbos b'mezid, it becomes also forever. Chad Omar, but another opinion was Ma'aser Shabbos Derabbanan. If you did it b'mezid on Shabbos, the fact that it's aser is all a knas midrabanan, because you did it on Shabbos. So the Gemara explains, the one that says that it's isam and atayre is the pasuk that we just quoted, Kodeshi. The opinion that says that it's only isam derabanan, Omakra, he says the opposite. When the pasuk says Kodesh hu, it says regarding Shabbos, Shmartem is Shabbos, keep Shabbos, Kodesh hu, it is Kodesh, which means who Kodesh is Adarab. It's coming to say the day of Shabbos itself is holy. You don't do malacha on Shabbos, but vein ma'asav Kodesh, an action, a malacha that you did on Shabbos is not going to remain holy in the sense of asa for you to eat after Shabbos. It's Adarab. The pasuk itself is saying that it would be mutter to eat after Shabbos, and it's only the Chachamim that came and imposed the knas. So the Gemara now goes back to the chiyuv of paying dalad v'hei for tviche, that the Chachamim actually said that if you slaughter it on Shabbos, you're going to be potter. So he explained the reason why you potter is because it's not royal la'achila, according to Rabbi Yechanan Sandler. So the Gemara asks now, this is all understood according to the opinion that says that the isser to eat what you shacht on Shabbos is a isser min atayre sam to lahachi. So therefore we could say patri rabbanan. So therefore the rabbanan say if you shecht a stolen animal on Shabbos, you potter to. So, according to the opinion that says that the issa to eat from what you shechted on Shabbos is issa minat teire, so amtulahachi patir rabbanan. So that explains why the rabbanan say that if you shecht this animal that you stole on Shabbos, you would be patir to pay dalad vehei because it's not fit to eat from it. According to Rab Shimon, if it's not fit to eat from it, you don't pay the knas. But according to the opinion that when you shecht it on Shabbos, minat teire, you can eat from it. It's just a knas with the rabbanan. So then, amai patri rabbanon. Why would the rabbanon say that you patir to pay dalad vehei min hatayre? It's still right to eat from it. So therefore, this payment of knas of dalad vehei, you should still be chayiv to pay. The fact that there's a knas with rabbanon not to eat from it on Shabbos shouldn't affect your chiyuv min hatayre to pay the dalad vehei. So the Gemara answers, you're right. According to this opinion, we have to say ashara. That when the Chachamim argued with Rab Meir in this Braisa, it wasn't speaking about that case where he shechted it on Shabbos. It was going on the other two cases mentioned in the Braisa. What were the other two cases? Avodah zareh v'sheira niskal. Regarding one that shechted for Avodah zareh, or he shechted this sheira niskal, then in those cases Rab Meir says that you still have to pay dalad v'hei. It's on these two that Chachamim say you potter because the meat is not fit for eating at all. It's asaba no, it's Avodah zareh, it's sheira niskal. But now, though, the Gemara will go through here to explain, according to Rab Meir, why if you shecht for Avodah zareh and why by sheira niskal should you be chayiv dalad vehei. The Gemara asks, and this is as follows: Rab Meir, amai mechayiv sheichet l'Avodah zareh. Why, if a person steals an animal and then shechts this animal for the sake of Avodah zareh, why should he be chayiv to pay dalad vehei? Kivin the shachat ba'porta. The moment he begins that shchita, he does the shchita right in the beginning, just one drop. So asra, right then he's doing over here an action which is a serving of a zareh. So it asks this animal b'hana from the very first second. So if so, idoch, the rest of the shchita of the animal isura hanahu. It's the animal is already asa b'hana v'loy the mare katavach. And what he's shechting here doesn't belong to the owner that he stole it from because it's already asa b'hana. So Rashi here brings that the Gemara later says to be chayiv on this isser of tviche, to pay dalad vehei, the entire tviche, the entire shechting has to be done in order to be chayiv. The whole tviche. But over here, the beginning, the first second, you do the avodah zareh, you shechting it for avodah zareh, it becomes right away asabah. So the continuation is not anymore a shchita that belongs to the owner. Rashi says this could be compared to a person that took this animal and instead of shechting it, he just threw it into the fire, burnt it. So you're not going to be chayiv to pay da'al v'hei. So here as well, the moment he began the shechita, he made it completely asa ba'ana. He threw it into a fire. He totally made it asa. So whatever he shechts afterwards, he shouldn't be chayiv for this. So Rav explains, when Rav Meir says you're still chayiv, the case over here is, ba'omer, when the person is shechting for the avodah zareh, so this person says, "B'gemar zvicha oivda." I'm only shechting it for the sake of avodah zareh. I'm serving avodah zareh by the conclusion of the shechita. The beginning of the shechita is not for avodah zareh. So he's serving the avodah zareh. It only is at the end, and so therefore the full shechita is being done when it's still mutter b'hana. So you still are chayiv to pay da'al v'hei for this. Now the Gemara asks regarding the other case Rav Meir said, "Shoyer aniskal." If you steal a shoyer that was already the bezdin paskin that has to be stoned to death. If so, this is a shoyer that's asabana. So if so, lav the mare katavach. What you're shechting doesn't belong to anybody. It doesn't belong to the person you shechted it from. It's asabana. So why are you chayiv to pay for this? Da'al v'hei. So the Gemara here will give us a specific case where there is a loss of money and there is a level of ownership even in a shoyer aniskal and yechayiv for shechting it. Amarave, so Rave says, the case over here is kagoyin shemasrei l'shomer. This shoyer we're talking about here is the owner gave it over to a person to guard it. The hizik bebeis shomer. This shoyer damaged someone in the house of a shomer. V'huad bebeis shomer. It became a shoyer muad in the house. It was warned about this in the house of the shomer. V'nigmar dinai bebeis shomer. And while it was by the shomer, the bezdin paskin, this shoyer has to be slaughtered, or has to be killed. That is, it's a shoyer aniskal, has to be stoned to death. It's all happened in the house of a shomer. Okay, so now for this shomer, does this shoyer, the bezdin already paskin, has to be stoned to death? Does it have any value for the shomer himself? So seemingly no. But here the Gemara will bring that according to one opinion, it still has a value for the shomer himself. Why is that? Says the Gemara, Rab Meir in our brayse that's saying that it's possible to say regarding the payment of Dalet Vehei that you pay even for a shoyer niskal. In this case, it still has a value for the shomer because Rab Meir Savalo Rab Yaakov. Rab Meir holds like Rab Yaakov. The Gemara will explain what that means, and that is also a svira like Rab Shimon. And he also holds like Rab Shimon. So therefore it will have a value for the shomer. What does this mean? Savalak Rab Yaakov. So number one, Rab Meir holds like what Rab Yaakov said. The Amma, Rab Yaakov said, and we had this earlier in the Masechta here, that Af Mishenigma Dinai, a shomer that was guarding a shoyer, and now he allowed this shoyer to go and gore and to kill someone, and Bezdin Paskin, they're ready that you have to stone it to death, and therefore it's asabah. So seemingly this shoyer has no value at all. So if you have to return what you are guarding to the owner, what should you have to return? Seemingly you should have to give him a new shoyer that has value. But no, but Rabbi Yaakov says, even after, it's nigmadina, hichzira yishomer lebayla muchser. You can give back this very shoyer, even though it's asa bahana, but physically it's the same shoyer. You give back the shoyer to the owner, and you returned what you took from the owner, and you don't have to give him back anything else. That's one point. That's what Rabbi Yaakov says. Okay, so now the shomer is not the owner of this animal. But for the shomer, if you're going to take this shoyer now, if you steal this shoyer from this shomer and you slaughter it, and now you're preventing him of returning this shoyer to the owner, so then for him it has a value of money. Instead, he's now going to have to go and buy another shoyer to return it to its owner. So he's not the owner. It's just a loss that you're causing him by the fact that now he's going to have to return another shoyer. Says the Gemara, V'savala Rab Shimon. Rab Meir also holds like Rab Shimon. The Amma, Rab Shimon says, Davar hagayrim l'mamayin k'mamen dami. Even if you don't have an actual ownership in something, but if you have a connection to this, to the extent that the loss of it will cause you a loss, that is considered to be a loss of money. There is considered to be a certain level of ownership. Where did Rab Shimon say this? The Tanan, Rab Shimon says, the Mishnah, Rab Shimon says, Kotchim shechayev b'chriyusam. Regarding Kotchim, where it's your responsibility. So this is a case of Kotchim, where a person dedicates an animal for Kotchim, but he says, the language that he used was, Harei olai. I take upon myself that this should be a carbon. So when you use the term olai, if that animal itself gets lost or gets stolen, it's your responsibility to replace it. So in such a case, if a Ganev steals it from you, so then he's chayiv to pay you back, and the halachas of kefil of Dalet Vehei will all apply in this case. It's all Kotchim. Regarding kachim, there is no payment of kefil, there is no payment of dal vehei, but it's a loss for you. Even though it's already kachim and you don't have any ownership over it, but if it gets stolen, then it's your responsibility to replace it. It's gaidim l'mamin, that you're going to have to replace it. So for that itself, it's considered to be mamin. So over here, we're going to say the same thing. This shaymer, even though he's not the owner of this shayr, but if you're stealing this shayr from him, it's a loss for him. Because with this shayr, he could just give it back to the owner, like Rabbi Yaakov said, and pater himself. Now that you're stealing it from him, you're causing this shaymer to have a loss now that he's going to have to replace it with another shayr. This is the case where you steal a shayr haniskal, and there's a loss of money that you're causing. There's a level of ownership here that the halacha of paying dal v'hei will still apply. Rav Kahana said about this. Amrita l'shmaite kameid Rav Zvid min Nerda. I said this whole sugi here that we're discussing in front of Rav Zvid from Nerda, and I told him over here this detail that we just said, that this Mishnah over here goes according to Rab Meir, and he asked me matzes maikmis masnisin ke Rab Meir. Going back to the Mishnah, right? The original question that the Gemara asked on the Mishnah, where the Mishnah says that if a person slaughters on Yom Kippur, that he's still going to be chayiv to pay dal v'hei. And the Gemara asked, why you chayiv dal v'hei? You can't get malchus and pay at the same time. And the Gemara answered, no, our Mishnah is Rab Meir. Rab Meir says, loikil mishalim, that you could get malchus and pay at the same time. So Rab Zvid asked on this that we said that our Mishnah goes like Rab Meir, v'loik Rab Shimon, and it doesn't follow Rab Shimon. But v'akatani seife, what does it say in the seife of our Mishnah? Rab Shimon pater b'shnei elu. Rab Shimon pates by these two last cases. So the Mishnah over there brought out many details, and the last two cases was when a person shechts and it becomes a treife, or he shechts and it was cholim ba'azara. So in both cases you can't eat the meat. So Rab Shimon, in both of these cases, patters. As we said before, Rab Shimon holds if it's not fit to eat, so then he patters. That was what Rab Shimon said in the end of the Mishnah. So, but Meklal, from this I understand, the Bekula Masnisim Maida. Only in the last two cases that I just mentioned, there he argues. But on the rest of the Mishnah, he would be Maida that you still have to pay a Dal V'hei. So that means that seemingly, that even the case that we are talking about here in the beginning of the Mishnah, when someone shechts Yom Kippur, Rab Shimon would say that you have to pay a Dal V'hei. But why is that so? Rab Shimon doesn't hold of what Rab Meir says, Loike Mishalem. So why do you pay Dal V'hei here? So the Gemara says, Amalei loy. That's not how you have to understand what Rab Shimon said. The klal, the maida, the case where Rab Shimon is being maida is the other two cases that it brings there towards the end of the Mishnah. The klal, the maida, betavach o machar, l'refuah or l'klavim. When a person is shachting or he's selling for a purpose of refuah, for a healing, or to feed for the dogs, in such a case, you may have thought that Rab Shimon holds it yapata because you're not shechting it for the purpose of eating. So it says, no, Rab Shimon over there agrees that you have to pay dal v'hei because b'poil, it's fit for eating, even if that wasn't your intention. It's only on that Rab Shimon goes. But regarding what the Mishnah said before, Rab Shimon would disagree. If you shech Yom Kippur, you're going to be potter to pay dal v'hei because you don't get malchus and pay at the same time. Talk to Gemara weiter. It said in the Mishnah, Ganav Mishalove v'tovach hamacha v'chulo. A person stole from his own father, and then afterwards he slaughtered it or he shechted it. And then the Mishnah said, what happened afterwards? His father passed away. So then he still has to pay the payment of dal v'hei, even though now he himself is a yodisher. He inherits part of from these possessions of his father, but nevertheless he has to pay to his brothers a portion of the dal v'hei. The portion that belongs to him is his, but the rest of the dal v'hei has to pay to the brothers. That's what it said in the Mishnah. So the Gemara begins with an ibaya that's related to this. Ibaya minei Rav and Rav Nachman. Rav asks Rav Nachman the following shaila: Ganav she'esh shnei shutfim. A person steals an ox that belongs to partners, and then v'tafche, he went and slaughtered it. But now v'hoide le'achad mehen, he admits to one of the partners that I slaughtered this ox that I stole from you. Now, what's the halacha when you admit about this? Because it's a knas, you don't have to pay. But the thing is, he only admitted to one partner. To the other partner, he did not admit. So now, when he would pay this dal v'hei, since he's paying to partners, what does that mean? If you're paying to partners, you pay half of the payment of dal v'hei to one and the other half to the other. So in this case, you admitted to one partner, you put to pay half of it for that partner. But to the other partner that you did not admit to, for him you shall still be chayav to pay. So the question is, Mahu, do you pay half of this payment here to one partner? Do I say, Chamisha Bakar Amar Achmana? The Torah says, pay 5 times of this cattle. So it says 5 times. V'lei Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar. But in this case, you don't have to pay, because here you're only going to have to pay half of that 5 for one partner. So you don't pay at all. Or maybe no, Chamisha Baka Rachmana. The Torah says you have to pay 5 times as much. But Vafila Chamisha Chatzoi Baka. But that means that in such a case where it plays out by partners, where you were made for one and not for the other, you have to pay half. Here you still do have to pay half for one partner. That was the question that was asked from Rav Nachman. Amalei Rav Nachman answered, Chamisha Baka Rachmana. The Torah says that you have to pay 5. V'lei Chamisha Chatzoi Baka. But you don't have to pay half of this payment if you're only paying for one partner. So Eisvei, Rav asked him from our Mishnah. The Mishnah says, God of Mishalov v'tovach hamachar. He stole from his own father, and then he goes and slaughters it or sells it. V'achakach meisav, and then the father dies. So what does the Mishnah say? Mishalim tashlumi arba v'chamisha. That he's going to pay 4 or 5 times for what he slaughtered here. But now, if you think about this case, it's similar to the Ibaya that was asked. Why? V'hahacha kiv in the misaviv. Now that the father died, k'may shekadam v'hoyde le'echad mehen dami. It's similar to the case of the 2 partners where he was mated to one partner and not to the other partner. Why? Because here as well, he's not paying the full Daled V'hei. He himself is a son. He's inheriting from the father. So that portion of the payment he doesn't pay. He's only paying the percent of the payment that belongs to the other brothers. So he's not paying the full Daled V'hei. V'katani, nevertheless, the Mishnah says, Mishalim Tashlomer Bava Chamisha, that he still has to pay the portion of the Daled V'hei for the brothers. So how could Rav Nachman say that you don't pay a portion of the payment of Daled V'hei? Amalei, so Rav Nachman answered, Hacha b'mayaskinon, the Mishnah is the case is, Kagan sha'omad oviv b'din. There was already a din Torah when the father was alive, and the Bezdin already paskin when the father was alive to pay the full Daled V'hei. So once it was already paskin when the father is alive, so then he has to pay that even after he passes away. But Anachanami, if this all comes up and the psak din was after the father passed away, he wouldn't have to pay this. So the Gemara asks him this, what does that mean? Avalo yamad b'din mai. If there was no din Torah when the father is alive, what would be the din? So then you wouldn't have to pay this payment because he's not paying the full payment here. But if so, the Tani Seife. In the next Mishnah, the Mishnah wants to draw a distinction, and it says that if the case would be different, Ganav Mishalaviv, he steals from the father. Umeis, and first the father died. And after the father already died, then he slaughtered it or sold it. Then he's not going to pay arba v'chamisha because after the father died, so over here what he's shechting already belongs partially to him, so he doesn't pay for this. That's a distinction the Mishnah makes. But the question is, nifleg b'didei, why can't the Mishnah even make a distinction in the case where the father died after the tvicha mechira? The same like the first case of the Mishnah here. And what should the Mishnah say? As we said before, when you pay the Daled V'hei, when the father dies, after you slaughtered it, if there was already a din Torah. If there was no din Torah yet, and there was no psak din yet, when the father was alive, that you should pay the full payment, so then you can't pay anymore above chamisha, like Rav Nachman says, because you don't pay a partial payment of above chamisha. Amalei, Rav Nachman answers, it's not a question. Hachanami, the Mishnah Taka could have made this distinction, but I did the Nasav Reisha, Gana Mishalava, V'Tavach HaMachar, V'Acha Kachmei, since in the Reisha of the Mishnah, it brings the case where the Gneva and the Tvicha Mechira was first, and the father died after that, so Nasav Seifer, and the Seifer, when it wants to say a different case, so it also, it talks about a case where the Misa of the father was at a different time. So it says over there in the Sefer, God of Mishal Aviv, Umeis Aviv, that the father died first, and then he slaughtered or he sold. So the Mishnah is drawing the distinction regarding the time of when the father died. But really, the halacha, the Mishnah could have made the distinction regarding the psak din. But now the Gemara says, this whole psak din over here that Rav Nachman said about this, l'tzafra. The next morning, Amalei, Rav Nachman came back and told Raveh that no, the halacha is the opposite of what I said. Chamisha baka rachmana. When the Torah says that you pay 5 times, the Torah says this. Va'afila chamisha chatzai bakar, that you pay only not only when you're paying the full 5 bakar, but even when you're only paying half, you still have to pay the knas as well. So the case before, when you were made it to one shuttif, you weren't made it to the other shuttif, you still have to pay it. And he added, the reason that I didn't tell you this psak din when you asked me the question yesterday, I gave you a different answer. This is because I didn't eat the meat of an ox. Rashi's pshat for this is that he wasn't ma'ayin properly. He wasn't medactic in this inyan properly, and therefore he came with the wrong answer. If he would have been medactic properly, he would have had the right answer. And this is the right answer. You do pay, even when you're only paying for a part of the dal v'hei. Taisus over here says that the Gemara means literally, that he was shari b'tainis because he was fasting the day before, so he didn't have the koyach to give the right answer. Okay, but now though the Gemara comes back to the distinction that we quoted before regarding the case where a person slaughters the animal that he stole from his father. So what did it say? That if the father dies after you slaughter it, so then you pay the dal v'hei. And that fits, that makes sense, according to what we're saying now. Even though you're a Yiddish, but you paid part of the dal v'hei to the brothers. But then the next Mishnah says that if you slaughter it after the father already died, then you don't pay the dal v'hei. But now the Gemara asks on that, but ve'ela, ma'ishna reisha, ma'ishna seifa. What difference is there in these two cases? The case of the reisha, where the father died after you slaughtered it, or in the seifa, where the father died before you slaughtered it. The question of the Gemara now is, according to Rav Nachman's final psakir, that you do pay a dal v'hei, even a partial payment, so shouldn't that also mean that if you're slaughtering an animal where you have yourself a certain partnership over this, because you yourself are a Yiddish, but there's brothers here, and this animal belongs partially to the brothers, and you shechted it. So you stole it from the brothers, and you shechted it from them, you should also pay dal v'hei. It's not a full gneva, a full tvicha, mechira, part of it belongs to you. But if Rab Nachman says that even if you pay half of the payment, so even over here, when part of it is not yours, you still should have to pay for this. So what's the reason for the distinction? Amalei Rav Nachman answers, it's not the same thing. Reisha, karine be'yotvache kule be'isura. In the Reisha, so even though you're only paying part of the payment, but the actual slaughtering of it was a slaughtering of an animal that was fully not yours. Because at that time, the father was still alive. So it's tvachai, you shechted something that doesn't belong to you. It's totally aser. But on the Seifa, it's not only that there's a partial payment, but the actual tficha itself is after the father already died, and you are partial owner of this animal. So even though, you are also stealing the percent of the brother and shechting it from them, but in such a case, you're going to be potter.